Start my video. Boom, I'm back. That's me. All right.
Hey,
Everything's fine. All right. Hey, Richard, how you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good, good. Nice to meet you, man.
Yeah, nice to meet you too.
Cool.
I'll go into a kind of official introduction then.
All right.
So, welcome everyone, and welcome to all those who are watching us, joining us on live stream. This is our first artist shop talk, where we're just going to gather and just have fun, indulging, talking about our favorite things, and hope you all enjoy. We have with us Alfred Shepard and Richard Steighner from California and Australia.
Hey,
Hello.
guys. Hello.
So we're representing a nice wide cross section there, and I'm here in Florida.
Nice. Make a nice triangle, I guess.
Indeed.
That's
Just gotta leave out the Bermuda shorts.
I knew it was coming. Someone's gonna say it.
So what we're gonna do is, and this is just a tester, so I'm gonna try just going full nerd about one of my projects, and maybe we can use that as a jumping off point, and maybe that'll inspire some other conversation topics. So without further ado, let me introduce my piece here. So I'm going to share my screen here. And what we'll do first is watch, and you see I have all my notes here. So
All right.
yeah, I originally wrote this
Exposed.
arrangement and was going to make a video explaining it. So that's why I have so many notes. I don't expect us to go this in depth for everything. So this is just me going full overkill with this first project here.
Okay.
So I made an arrangement of We Shall Overcome. This was back when Ahmaud Arbery, when that first happened, and this idea for this kind of came about around when there was that Blackout Tuesday. One of my favorite artists, Priscilla Ahn, had posted a video of herself singing We Shall Overcome, and that kind of started getting the gears spinning. So one of the first ideas I had to arrange that, a lot of things I do kind of crystallize around one idea first. So my idea was, and We Shall Overcome and Amazing Grace somehow fit together. And now, before I go into the full depth of my music nerd depravity, let's just have a listen to it first. So here we have a recording of me playing my We Shall Overcome medley.
Nice.
Bravo.
Nice. Very
Thank you.
nice. It's
Thank you.
really interesting for me because, my dad's a pastor, and so I grew up playing it for my dad's church. And I've played all of those songs countless
Mm.
times, and I've never heard it like that,
Oh,
So it's very cool. It's very, like, how you combined all of that stuff. Like, I have so many questions, but and there's so much to take in, but like how you were able to incorporate the bass of one of the spirituals and have that work for you to become the melody of the other one. It's really, really well done.
well, hopefully I'll be able to answer some of those questions in my little spiel here. This is kind of what I'm hoping to do with this. Is each time we meet, if anyone has a project you're working on that you really want to get into and just share your excitement and enthusiasm about it, because that's one thing I've kind of missed as I've been going through the music profession. Is it's surprisingly hard to find opportunities just to kind of gush over, well, how fun it is to make music and how
I agree.
exciting it is to make music. So hopefully this is kind of like a little venue for us to do just that. So without further ado, let me go into this thing here. So, as I was preparing to make this arrangement, I did some conceptual pre-work. First was that little germ of an idea to combine We Shall Overcome and Amazing Grace. I also had in the back of my mind the thought about key signature. Oftentimes you hear, especially in classical, all these kind of connotations of certain keys, like D major being a joyous key, triumph for Beethoven's Ode to Joy in the Alleluia chorus, or E flat major for the Eroica Symphony and Emperor Concerto. So, of course, I had to go and look at a page and find all little blurbs about some connections to different keys, just to kind of
Wow.
confirm my thoughts there. Yes, I do go full nerd with this kind of
That's
thing.
great. I had no idea. I've been doing it wrong all this time.
And here's some curious and dated descriptions. D major, from that page I just showed you there.
Right.
Key of triumph, of alleluias, of war cries, of victory rejoicing. Thus, the inviting symphonies, the marches, holiday songs, and heaven rejoicing choruses are set in this key. E flat major. The key of love, of devotion, of intimate conversation with God. Interesting, there's no mention of heroic, but it'll still do. And so my rough game plan was to start with We Shall Overcome and combine We Shall Overcome with Amazing Grace, and hopefully along the way find some other use to combine other spirituals and make use of those keys, D major and E flat major. And a little spoiler here, as I try to organize my thoughts as I did this thing, here's kind of a little overview of how things overlap there.
Oh my
We
gosh.
shall overcome, and we shall overcome with Amazing Grace, and we have Wade in the Water in the minor mode, and just kind of tracking what's happening, because if I didn't do this, I would have gotten lost myself down this rabbit hole.
Right.
Is this something you put together before, or
This
while
is what
you
I did
began?
during the process of writing it, yes.
Okay.
Huh.
And so, of course, in the process of creating any arrangement you're composing, there's always the aspect of serendipity. I'd like to say that I purposely sought out to make every little detail there, but most of the time, a lot of them are just kind of happy coincidences which just kind of fall into place, and all I can take credit for is recognizing and seeing that, oh, this has a new idea happening there. It seems like oftentimes a lot of the best parts of the piece happen by accident. And so yeah, it started on a Blackout Tuesday, and I finished it on Friday morning. So composed from just those 3 days there, and just anyone enjoying nice round numbers, it ended up being precisely 100 measures long. And so the ones it has are We Shall Overcome, Amazing Grace, Wade in the Water, and Nobody Knows the Trouble I Seen. And we just heard the full performance. So getting into now, our first verse. starting out with a single voice intoning "We shall overcome," beginning alone, then joined by a second voice, then a third, building one voice at a time until we reach into a 4-part chorale. Because sometimes it takes only one person to have the courage to stand up first. And this way we have one person starting and then joined by a second, a third, and a fourth. And here's my little music nerd moment here. In measure 8 we have a suspension. You heard I ended on that suspension, which would typically in musical fashion resolve. But as we are not at a real resolution in this yet, and it's still going on now. This was back in June, and in September it's still continuing. So I subvert that standard resolution and instead as we move away.
I see. So you didn't, I see. See, I almost see that as like, because it wouldn't work. Yeah, if you were to resolve the then you couldn't, it would almost be like a parallel whole step going up. So it definitely works better that way. Yeah, nice.
I wanted to kind of, again, little back of the head idea that I had here was try to postpone any sense of real resolution, because again, it's a situation that's not fully resolved and still needs work. So I wanted to try to express and represent that in the music here. So you can hear now we get a lot of chromaticism, a lot of subversion of typical kind of traditional harmonic progression.
And I guess I'm spoiling the ending here, but this is probably why you didn't resolve it at the very end of your arrangement. There's that one. Wait, can I interrupt you?
Yes, please.
So, okay, what is your brain thinking with that? What's that for you? Like, for me, this is an F major over E flat situation, but what are you thinking here?
Yeah, I'm thinking more of, I suppose, in terms of appoggiaturas, in that they're leading to a D7 harmony.
Oh, so you're chromatically approaching the D7. Nice, love it, cool.
And so, as we're subverting the status quo, we would expect to.
Oh, I remember this, yeah.
Into D major.
Right, but that doesn't happen.
No. Into D flat major.
D flat. So how do you justify that? Or I'm sure you have a perfect explanation for it.
I kind of wanted to.
You just so wait, because couldn't you do like let me see. Like, why not something like, that would be the obvious deceptive one to go to like a B flat, right?
Mm-hmm. I was also trying to slowly, as I was slowly working my way through this, I was like, how in the heck am I going to make it fit into E flat major convincingly? I know I want to have the triumphant E flat major climax. How the heck am I going to get there?
Right. Because your leading tone becomes your tonic, your one, right?
But once we get into our new D flat major, we move into then our Amazing Grace. So let's play the first verse into that transition. And now we get into our amazing grace. And we have, in the right hand, a nice presentation of our main theme. And we take now into the left hand, We Shall Overcome becomes a drum beat. We are marching. And here's kind of where it gets to be more complicated too, as I try to fit together all these different themes. I had a big list of different spirituals to try fitting together. Some of them didn't quite pan out, some of them did. Yes, another part of piecing together this sort of musical puzzle is just being a darn clever smarty pants. So as verse 2 progresses, I try to add in some dissonance, spice up the harmony, and again, subvert tonality, because it's a journey. So let's see, we have a brief moment in the sun, but that just shining a light isn't enough. It takes work, it takes marching, and hopefully we can now march with some grace.
Really good. I love how you took the "We Shall Overcome" and you developed it into like specifically measure 24, end of second line. It's really nice. I like that nuance you added there. It's really awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's my favorite. Yeah.
Yeah, such a juicy moment there.
Yeah.
And so as we get into verse 3, we have Wade in the water coming in. And I tried to be sneaky and kind of foreshadow that in the left hand of that last part there. As we have giving way to Wade in the water, just
right.
like that. And we get to our next verse with Wade in the water, kind of pairing things back, using an enharmonic kind of shift from B flat major into C sharp minor. And on the right hand, we have an approximation of amazing grace and augmentation in the minor.
Right.
And I should go to a D sharp for that last measure, but I just really wanted to get that clash of dissonance there, that B sharp and C sharp. So I made an executive decision there. So carrying on, we have after we hear Wade in the water once in the bass, we next have Nobody Knows the Trouble I've Seen. And yeah, we certainly have seen enough trouble this year. And that is then in minor. So we have get rid of that. So, part 2 of our third verse. We now have Wade in the water in the right hand, with nobody knows the trouble I've seen in the left hand. Wade in the water. Well, first we'll do nobody knows the trouble I've seen in the minor mode in darker depths of the left hand octaves. And our right hand, soulful wails of a gospel choir.
Yeah. Parallel fourths there, yeah. It's almost like McCoy Tyner.
And when we reach the text of Wade in the water, and say God's going to trouble the waters,
Right.
that's when we get the big explosion of very troubled waters.
Am I supposed to be seeing a big black box there?
Yes.
Okay, great.
It's for
Spoilers.
suspense.
Yeah.
I think what I like about that, particularly the left hand part in that, is how it sort of calls back to the marching from
Yeah.
a couple of sections earlier, but now it's sort of this like stumbling kind of feeling until you get to that da 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 da, da those triplets that almost is like a running and then it's a stomp. I think that imagery is really sticking out to me.
Yeah, and just you feel the violence of that scream at the end of that.
Mm-hmm.
From the That's such a interesting chord. Now we have our bridge, which I accept. That grace over troubled waters. Not a bridge over troubled waters, but grace over troubled waters. And so after that climax, we start to dissipate our attention. We have our left hand tremolo. So after we have our big, begin to you might notice the right hand is doing some double duty. The top line is while the thumb and doing a play.
Yeah. Wow.
And at some point it gets to the right hand actually trying to balance 3 at the same time.
Yeah, it's 3. Yeah.
And how? Very carefully.
What's when you're playing that? What is going through your head? Is it just execute the notes, or do you have those melodies kind of floating around up there at the same time?
Yeah, it's trying to keep centered and keep those threads going.
Mhm.
Well,
So setting each of those themes in its proper lane, and making sure they keep traveling that proper lane, which could mean articulation-wise and dynamic level, just to make sure that this top one so
And that works out.
Gritty way to make sure the dotted half notes get enough sound that they sustain and don't get followed up by the fastly moving notes of the other motive. But
Yeah, this is a really cool section.
It is. It works out how, the beginning of Amazing Grace is the is a third, right? And that's the same of, but you know, you made it, you know, but if you, yeah, so you were able to take that idea and really flourish with it, which is really awesome.
That was a very happy coincidence. When I noticed that, I was
You
very
didn't
happy.
time travel back and make sure these composers did the same intervals so you can make this arrangement? Because I think that's a better explanation for me.
The section above our dominant pedal, and then rise that up. And again, that's kind of a theme here. We've had a lot of shifting keys via half steps, and this just continues in here. And we shift up and up and up, and we get to another section where we have even more depth. You might see here on this screen 61 to measure 63 at the key change into 5 flats. Here's a moment where the right hand truly is playing three spirituals at the same time. So keep on rising up.
Ranger.
Yes. And just modulating up and up and up. And yeah, I'm like in that key change. That took a long time just to figure out the choreography of how to make that work. And we finally arrived. Hey, we made it to E flat major. At long last. Our heroic climax, after our bridge leads us into it. Now we hear Nobody Knows the Trouble I've Seen, but in major as opposed to in minor. As if now we're seeing some hopeful, positive things. But again, we still have a ways to go. And We Shall Overcome is marching deep bass drums down in bass. So here's that whole bridge into our triumphant flat major. Everything together there. And so after that rousing climax, we're no longer seeing troubles, but we're seeing good. We're marching with confidence that we shall overcome. And we have the for a 25-cent word here. As we have our coda, we have a sonic pedal on the top E flat, sustain, as we have in our inner voice. We shall overcome as a repeating chorus, and as you notice that similarity between Amazing Grace and Wade in the Water, we have Amazing Grace. And Wade in the Water. a rhythmic difference, but it worked in helping kind of make that gradual slowing of momentum. And then we have one last little twist. After our final and so we make E flat 7, and we take kind of an enharmonic shift here and then kind of turning into an A7, taking us back to our original D major. And as this plays us out, all under one same pedal, we have Amazing Grace, kind of in a more haunting setting, as if was it all a dream, or what? Give me a question kind of decide. And again, we have one last subverted suspension there, not but it resolves up. Maybe optimistically, but also open-ended. We're not quite sure how things can turn out, but there we go. So
I think that final suspension works too, because most of the shifts you do throughout this piece shift up, and so I think having that like resolving up like that gives you this thought like maybe it's going to keep going. I don't know, maybe he's not done, maybe there is no ending, so it's a true suspension in that regard.
And yeah, so that there was my spiel, and okay, went a good amount of time there. Would you be interested in listening one more time to the whole piece through, having gone through all of that, and see if maybe some new things might pop up? If I can indulge you for another 4 minutes.
Let's have
It's
it.
your show, man. Let's do it.
All right, so one more time, here we go. Having gone through the inner rabbit holes of my mind of what went on as I was making this, here's the finished product. And so there you go. From, gee, I wonder if We Shall Overcome and Amazing Grace might fit together. And gee whiz, E flat major sure would be a nice key to use. So all of that stuff.
It's incredible how many things can sort of evolve from
Yeah,
rather simple ideas.
Yeah,
bravo.
and all the things that go on in someone's head in just 3-4 days. That's all it took to get all that stuff there. So anyway, is
In
that
some ways, I think that's important. You have to condense a little bit the creation process. I think if this was something that went on over months and months or years and years, it might start to lose some of the value of the coincidences there, or some of the choices you make. I think the fact you did it in a few days sort of makes it a little more potent.
it's almost like cooking. You can't let the recipe sit too long, otherwise the ingredients will go stale.
Hmm.
Yeah, deep.
But anyways, um, that was my whole idea there. And then I don't know if you guys feel like you would have something like that to want to do in the future for our next ones of these, but hopefully that gives us some interesting ideas to kind of jump off on to do a little shop talk. We have a little time can maybe spend and talk about some of the topics here. Like one of them I think might be interesting is with regard to the arranging process. Like that arrangement there, I had a general idea and maybe one or two specific points to kind of crystallize upon, and upon that start to build out from there. What are you guys' experience or process when it comes to arranging things? Like, what's your entry point?
Hmm. I think I might need to change mine to picking a key that.
Let's just let's go to that website again and see what which one is I'm feeling a little glorious. Which is the glorious key? Um I don't know. I Richard, I'm sorry. I didn't have a chance to really look you up. Are you a arranger composer too, or are you like what's your profession?
So I work primarily with vocals. I do a lot of a
Uh,
cappella work.
okay.
So any arranging I do tends to be sort of SATB style.
Gotcha. Cool.
Um,
That's awesome.
and yeah, it has its limits, but I think insofar as you have limitations, I think you have unlimited possibilities for creativity in a
Right.
sense.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, but we do dabble a bit more in sort of pop music,
Right.
and I think in terms of my arrangements, it wouldn't it wouldn't stand up against some of the
I don't
things you guys have here. I
well, I
actually was
mean,
curious. I got to watch your writing for orchestra video, and
okay.
I was curious like how you felt walking into that room with
Yeah.
everybody sitting there. Like, was that intimidating? Was that great? Do you feel? I don't know. I was just so curious about that.
Um, see, I actually written for choir too, so I had some stuff for you. How did it feel? Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was definitely terrifying. I've done at that point of recording. I've done it a couple times, so that particular one was less terrifying. But it's very interesting because I did not grow. I don't really have the pronounced classical background that our friend Jeff has. I'm more of a jazzer, but I love it. So coming in with all of these tuxedo wearing people, it's a different experience. But you and I think I say that you pretty much come from a place in that everyone wants the music to sound good, and mainly I'm dealing with the conductor. I'm not really dealing with 50 musicians. I'm more so dealing with the conductor, and then the conductor will figure out that. So you just sort of overcome that. But it's a very, it's first it's a terrifying feeling, but then I think after the first piece is played and it's not like a disaster and everyone is not like hating you for the arrangement that you made, everything starts to calm. Like, okay, we can get through this. This can work out. So yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. I love it.
Hmm.
Yeah, there was a moment in there where everybody started having fun.
Right, exactly. And
And
that's I think that's what happens. Yeah, yeah,
yeah, oh, that's very cool. I think it'd be amazing to write in a piece like that and see
yeah.
it sort of come to life.
There's
Um,
no other feeling like it. It's totally worth it. Like it. I went through a lot for that to happen, but it was. I would do it again. It was really great.
yeah.
So, I mean, I guess on the topic of arranging. So let's say, okay, someone comes to you and say, all right, Richard, we want to arrange this Cardi B song for choir. What do you
Okay.
do?
First of all, that's great. It means I got a job coming in, so let's go. Um, so Cardi B, arranging for Cardi B is a little different, maybe, because I think one of the hardest things between a vocal arrangement and instrumental is that you're looking for the hooks and you're looking
Right.
for the melody lines for vocals. Because if you're trying to replicate the guitars or the synths or something with a voice, it's gonna be different. So I think you just have to prioritize what makes sense in the arrangement.
Hmm.
So if it's, I don't know if I don't know how much we can sing on this. I'm sure you've heard WAP, but
You know what? I actually haven't, and I'm really proud of that.
you've avoided it. You're like somebody who stayed off of Facebook. That is like,
But
it is everywhere.
yeah,
But
I mean, I
it's
might have
nearly
heard it and not know
unsingable.
it, but yeah.
Yeah. But you would look at that and say, like, okay, the opening line is vocal,
Right.
and so you could start that as sort of like your basis for a foundation,
Hmm.
and then after that you prioritize, like I said. So you got your lead vocals, and then I just have like bass and drums here, and then the rest is like what needs to happen.
Okay.
Particularly with voices, like I tour a lot with a three-person trio,
Yeah.
a three-person trio, as
Wow.
opposed to those
Those
five people
four-person
trios.
trios. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So you have to say, like, all right, what do we need to have in here, and what doesn't matter, and you really
Hmm.
have to become sort of economical about
Right.
what you need to have there. And I think in a sense that clarifies the point of what you're singing.
Yeah.
If you sort of have unlimited options about what people can sing, then it's like you might as well just play every note, the whole thing, and then
Right.
who cares?
Right. Right. Right.
And then usually after that, I do a pass at it, and then I usually go through and say, like, wow, that was terrible. That needs to change. That was beautiful. Let's repeat that a few more times.
How do you do a pass? You actually get a group of people to volunteer to just sing it, or
Oh, so no, I usually I'll demo it myself,
okay,
and
you'll
try
sing it
to.
yourself. Okay.
Yep. Yeah.
That helps. Me as
Yeah.
not a vocalist at all, I made some things like, maybe that's not singable. So
Yes, well, that's part of it too. Is what can you do? And maybe to your
right.
arrangement earlier, Jeff, you had to kind of choreograph how you could actually play some of the parts. If you can sing it yourself, okay, I maybe shouldn't be holding this note for 27 seconds here because that's not going to work for a human being. But
And I'm kind of similar too. Like I feel much more at home arranging than composing, because arranging you have something to kind of graft onto and morph and shape around and play with. Um, it's kind of terrifying thought of just staring at a blank canvas. Now what? How do you start? But when you have an actual piece you're arranging, or puzzle pieces to fit together, different spirituals and everything, you kind of you have more concrete shapes to work with.
Right.
And what I oftentimes do when I do an arrangement, and actually I've stocked up. I think I've got almost 60 arrangements now I've done,
Mm.
and I start off if it's a scored originally for something else like strings or orchestra or whatever it is. I usually do one pass where I just take in finale, which I use just open up two grand staffs, so I have four lines to pick things on, and just write down what the things are, what the notes are in the music, just so I can see them in front of me. I have this one just kind of stock raw copy of what the notes are, and I kind of start to visualize how they fit together. And oftentimes, after I go through the process of writing all that in there, I don't even use that again. That just the process of thinking through of how all these lines fit in and how they can layer on top, just transferring the notation from the original into this kind of exploded view helps get a little more perspective in how to go about, selecting what lines to keep, how to shape things, how to combine things. Um, so yeah, it's kind of like working on a car. You sometimes have to take it apart
Yeah.
before you can put it back together again.
That's yeah, exactly. That's what I do. I when I'm arranging, I mean, for me, I think about is okay. Well, what am I doing this for, right? So for the orchestra stuff that I did, well, that was for a particular concert, and that was for. It's not necessarily for to showcase the orchestra, but it's really more to showcase the singer. And arranging for orchestra under a singer is also a sort of a different thing. But the singer has released an album. She has several albums out. People who are going to see her knows her repertoire. So now I have to take that repertoire and put it for the orchestra. So then I had to what I had to do was listen to really her album, Mandy Harvey, by the way, if people are wondering. And she had three or did her fourth one come out yet? I don't think so. She had three release albums at that point. So I had to go through every single one of those albums and say, okay, which would work, or what would be what would be the least resistance transferring this to an orchestra, and how do I stay true to her arrangements while still including this orchestra? And what I had to do is exactly what she said: break it down to the melody and the harmony, and then figure out how I wanted to build it up from there. So yeah,
And that's a really good point too about knowing who you're making the arrangement for, purpose-wise, where the performance is, also then who the performers are. Like some of my earlier arrangements, I got started doing a lot of wedding arrangements. You do all the gigs, they want to hear a song which you're a piano violin duo. You have a song, but it's not written for piano violin, so you just do some arranging, and there you go. You have a duo arrangement. And I was very lucky in that my partner was a top-notch violinist. She could play anything, which for me was like a kid in a candy store. It's like, I don't know, I'll just give her that. She can play it. But later on, I had some times I had to actually make arrangements for like a high school string orchestra, and then you have to really think, oh wait, I don't know if they can play that.
Yeah.
And then you have to get really think hard about balancing what you might want to express and find, can I say this in a simpler way?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's really important, man. Just being able to perform it not as a virtuoso, but as anybody for that matter. I think that maybe that harkens back to songwriting in the beginning, like what can actually be done by everybody. But I think it's important to make music accessible in that sort of fashion.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I definitely written my share of complicated. Luckily, I got that out in college, so I didn't have to go to the real world and do that. But if there's one thing that's good enough about a music education in college, which I have serious issues with, but that's another discussion. But you have a playing field to make mistakes. So I made this overly complicated, like this was for like a big band, 5 saxophones, 4 trombones, 4 trumpets, and everyone's playing like no one's together. Everyone's playing all this different stuff, and it just sounds all over the place. There's nothing for anyone to hold on to when they're playing it. And it was still a great experience. It was still and it's funny. I didn't leave the room thinking like, oh, I'm a failure, but I leave the room knowing like, wow, okay, well, some of what I had actually came to fruition, and it was great. But now I know that sometimes it might be, and it was funny because my teacher didn't say anything like that to me. He never said like, so you've learned your lesson, right? You've no, no, he just was still encouraging, and I was able to figure it out on myself that, okay, less can be more in certain cases. But yeah,
That's cool.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
love that. Your teacher's like, yeah, keep going. Or
Yeah, I think that's the most valuable thing for sure. Not to place limitations or even this, but like you said, just to keep having that spirit of encouragement and to keep going for sure.
It's funny. It's kind of like sometimes I think my protection against any kind of intellectual property is that I make my piano parts so hard either only I can play them or no one else wants to put in the effort to learn them.
That's one DRM kind of approach right there, sure.
Oh my gosh, yep. That does.
Another,
I was I didn't have a music education in college like that, but
Yeah.
in a sense, the education came from a group that I was in where nobody else wanted to arrange,
Hmm.
and I had kind of dabbled in it, so I started doing it, and the same experience. Like the first two or three arrangements just had just everything I could fit in it, and chords that
Right.
shouldn't be there, and and then you perform them and you do them a few times and then you put them next to the simpler arrangements, and the way the crowds respond to that,
Right.
you're like, okay, I did too much, I'm trying to get really cute with this, and you just it's just not worth the investment
Exactly.
in
All
some
the
sense.
time and stuff. Yeah.
oh, the fatal flaw of arrangers trying to get cute.
Well, because like you said, it's like all the cool things. I mean, that's why it's cool to have this because you're able to share your brilliant work with us who will understand it. But the reality is that, a good 80% of the world, if not more, it's going to go over their head, and they're not going to appreciate it. So you have to figure out, so you have to make that decision as far as if you want to be in the professional world, depending on defining on what you consider professional, how much of that do you go in? So I'm working on this video now in which I had to seriously dumb down an already dumb sort of thing, to make it serve the story, because I know the purpose of this video is to get as many views as possible. That's pretty much it. It's not to, so if I were to play it for you guys, you're not gonna be amazed by it. But someone else will be like, "Oh yeah, I like what he wrote for the picture there. It went really nice." And I'm not. That's very condescending. I don't mean to be that way, but you know what I mean, though, right? It's there there there's specific jobs for specific tasks that you're given, and it's important to figure that out. And then in some cases, good to get that all out when you're young. So then when you're older, you don't have to prove anything to people that probably aren't going to really influence your career.
Mm. That is a big word too, the being like having to prove
Yeah.
that
Well,
you can do this or something. That I think
y-
that's very I feel very
well,
seen with that one.
yeah. Well, it's almost like it's weird as it's an ego thing. And I was thinking this the other day. It's not an ego as in I think I'm better than everyone else, or I think that hi, look at this cool stuff. But sometimes you just think, well, I know more than E minor. I could add a seven to it, and I have to play that in there because I know that. But you have to constantly remind yourself, like that's great that you know that, but maybe not in this case. It's an interesting balance you got to do.
Yeah.
Such an important point too. I mean, it is true as we go through the profession, most people don't really know what goes into making music. It's almost kind of a magical, mystical thing. And
Yeah.
when we write our music, when we talk to people, we have to kind of condense what we're saying to reach kind of, the lowest common denominator, so it's accessible to everybody. And of course, if any people are not able to fully understand something, it's impossible for them to accurately value that thing. So,
Hmm.
as a result, as artists and musicians, all the time we are not fully understood and by connection not fully valued. And it's such a danger then that rubs us off when we start to look at ourselves and feel that we start to have our own self value diminished as well. So that's kind of one of the reasons I wanted to do this thing here, is to give us an opportunity to, just air all that stuff we have pent up that we've been trying to kind of rephrase and tamp down, and let us, take pride and, you know take ownership of all of the work, because we've put in the work to be
Yeah.
experts at what we do. We don't have to feel bashful or humble about saying, no, I am good at this. I know what I'm doing. It's just a matter, it's not ego, it's just a matter of taking ownership of all the hard work we've put in to get here.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Do you think that that calls to question as well, like this sort of ever present wondering about why are you doing this? And
Well, you don't ask yourself that every day, then you're not doing your job. I guess, right?
Yep. Oh my goodness. Yep.
Well, actually, it's interesting. This is something I've recently kind of started thinking about as I started a podcast of all things, and um, Richard was kind enough already to be a guest, and Alfred, I know hopefully are you coming up next. And I think whenever you go out and meet somebody new, you kind of have that introduction. Hi, my name is. What do you do? And I was curious. I already asked Richard this, but Alfred, if you would imagine you were to meet someone new, just like at I don't know, a golf course or at the movies or at a coffee shop or whatever it is, and they asked, "What do you do, Alfred?"
Oh, that's it. Oh, okay. Uh, I mean, I guess I would say at this point because I'm sort of this is a whole nother story, but I'm sort of transitioning from a jazz pianist to a composer. So I'm trying to say I'm a composer. I write music for films and music and movies. That's probably my opening thing. I was at Walgreens, like whatever. My Walgreens is down the street, so I see this guy every day, and we finally broke the barrier. And he said, "Oh, what do you do?" And I said, "Oh, I write. That's what I try. That's what I do. That's how I introduce myself." So I'm sure there's more to that question, though, right?
Well, the interesting thing there is actually it's a small word, but I think it's an important word, and I've found this is fairly common among artists. Is when we answer that question, notice you use the word I am a composer, as opposed to I compose music, I'm somebody who does this thing.
Right.
No, but you said I am this. And so in a way I think a lot of artists we do feel in some sense that our art is kind of a part of ourselves. And so that's a curious thing I've noticed. I wonder if that's something we might find carrying out other places, but I'm just kind of curious about that.
Well, I
Sometimes you
think
see people say, yeah, I do this, I work there, but yeah, I am.
yeah, I think a lot of people. I don't know if that's strictly a musician thing, though. I think a lot of people identify themselves as the work that they do. I am a baker. I am a plumber. Um, it's definitely harder for us because for musicians not 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 the hardest, don't get me wrong, but we definitely have a challenge because our profession is constantly challenged as opposed to an engineer or a plumber. So therefore, when our profession is challenged, our identity, our self-worth is also challenged. And that's sort of what we have to go through every day. Um, you were a, you were going to be a programmer, right? You were studying to be a programmer for a good portion. I when I was at USF, I changed my major from well, I wanted to change my major from music, jazz performance to mechanical engineering. And at the time, I was double majoring in both mechanical engineering and jazz performance. That's a whole other story. But I think that yeah, so I think it's more of a case of that. It's just that all long-winded answer just to say that I think a lot of people, some people think men. I don't know if I'd go that route anymore since we're kind of becoming more progressive, but some people think that a lot of men identify themselves more by the profession that they do. But I'm just gonna say people in general for the record.
Well, it's just like yeah, I did for a while go down the path of computer programming when this pandemic hit, and all of our concerts were canceled, and all of the other things we had going on were just fell apart, and just what's going to happen?
You hear my
And
second going out? It's the world coming to an end right
oh, there
there.
it is, just on time. But no, like this entire period of time, it's been kind of soul searching for me, anyways. And
Yeah.
the more I thought about it, when I would go through the course, and it was a pretty intense course. It was well put together, well structured, and it was very intensive. It was easily 50 hours a week. And the more I thought about getting into it, and the deeper and thinking about job opportunities and tech all stuff, as I thought about that, I didn't really start to feel excited about it. I noticed I was feeling more and more sad.
Hmm.
And what I came to realize is, on the one hand, I made the decision to go into that for the wrong reasons. If I boil it down, it was down to money and fear. Fear of what's happening in the arts and how what the road in the future is going to look like, and money. We find some work that'll be a little more stable than the arts look to be for the next few years here.
Yeah.
But after I actually withdrew from that boot camp, and it felt like a big weight was lifted, and I can summarize kind of what I came to realize in just this idea here that I think I feel more at peace with myself fighting for my art than chasing a bigger paycheck.
Hmm. Interesting. Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting for me because I don't know. That's a whole other thing. But I mean, what you don't see yourself in a situation in which you would have a stable job and then you can spend time on your art on your own time and then have even a more fulfilling time instead of fighting for just like how are you going to pay bills in a couple months, like that's for a person like me who moved to LA in January of all times with all the work I had lined up were tours. It's a very
Yo.
like I mean, I'm good now. Well, I'm actually no, I'm not good, but I can smile now, but I could not smile then. You know what I mean? So, so, I guess I'm fascinated to know your perspective. Like, uh, why, why completely abandon some form of stability? Why completely go for just fighting for what you love?
And I was hoping along the way that yeah, that I was hoping that I'd be able to be finding ways to combine tech and art and music and be able to feel still fulfilled making the larger portion doing computer programming and tech stuff. I was
Hmm.
hoping that would work. Just the further along I got, I found that it wasn't so for me. It might be for other
Mm.
people, it might be a fine balance, but for me, I just found that as I was doing the boot camp, I would go sometimes an entire week without playing the piano, and it wore on me more than I expected it to. And
Wow.
there's a whole other story I can tell. It's one of those. I don't know if you guys have had one of those stories. It's kind of like the God works in a mysterious way stories, where all these odd coincidences just so happen to line up at just the right time to kind of get the idea of just the thing you need to know at that time.
Right.
One of those things happened, and that's kind of what helped crystallize my thinking of where I am now. So now I feel like I'm returning back to the arts more energized, more devoted. I've in a way, I've renewed my vows to music.
It is a
But
marriage. I agree with
yes,
that. Yeah.
but I mean, and it's just for me personally. I mean, anyone else might be totally different, but
Sure.
I just feel that even though it's going to be a tough road, I mean, it never was an easy road, but it's going to be especially tough coming up. I just feel that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing now, doing art, doing music, and I just didn't quite feel that way going the other path.
Yeah.
Well, good for you, man. And you have an incredible voice and an incredible mind, and you're a tremendous piano player and composer. So it's great to have you in this struggle together.
Yeah.
And in some fashion, I know that just about every musician and artist right now is kind of in a very doom and gloom phase, but I'm obnoxiously optimistic about it. And I think that everybody right now is kind of had to reckon with it, upskill themselves in a way, and as soon as either there's a vaccine or it's done or whatever it is, I think there's just going to be this flood of arts and touring and travel. And I mean, Alfred, you're doing a lot of film composing. Like there's so much coming in the way of film and TV and things like that that are
Yeah.
going to need new music. So I'm optimistic. I think we're past some of it. I don't even want to say the most of it, but we're past some of it right now. So I know we can keep going through this, but man, I'm pumped. Like I know it's annoying and some people are like, shut up, Richard, but I think it's just like I think there's so many good things coming, and if we can make it through this, we can get there.
Actually,
Well,
Alfred,
I mean,
you
if Jeff is back on our side, in the force, then that's a good start right there.
That's right.
then Alfred, um, it's how recent was it? You just composed music for an award-winning film.
I did that.
All
Yeah,
right.
that's a whole story in itself. But yeah, that was great. So I don't like this. I mean, this kind of takes away from the magic of it, but I actually wrote the music when I was still living in Florida. So,
Oh,
but it helped me. It was basically the catalyst, like working with these people, but was basically like the last catalyst to help me move here. So I was kind of like already on my way over there anyway, and that kind of sealed the deal because I believe they're trying to start filming another film in October. And I actually might be in this one, not that I'm an actor, but that's a whole nother story. But so looks like those are coming to fruition. But yeah, no, that was man, I wish I can talk about the film because honestly, it's the best film I've ever scored. Because I've done some films that maybe weren't so great, but you know, you got to take what you got. But this one, I mean, it's not like mind blowing or anything like that. Not that I'm, but the way it was acted and it and everything was made, it was really well done, and I was really happy to be a part of it.
nice. Well, congrats about that. That must
Thanks.
be the win and the networking that'll lead to. That must have been a nice housewarming gift.
Was yeah, a little bit, yeah.
I'd
it
love to
it
know a little
yeah
bit more about that. I've started dabbling in film score. I scored a short film, nothing
yeah.
major, but where do you begin for that? Like how much prep time do you put into getting to know characters, or is it
Yeah.
something else?
Um. All right. How long do we have here? See, I don't. It's changing. That. See, that's the thing. Usually, I personally like having as much of the film as possible. Like, if you have a couple scenes or even the whole thing, that's great. Or some people like to have a couple clips and they'll send me the script. I love having that. Uh, but now I'm finding a lot of people, and I don't know. I'm trying to talk with more composers. A lot of people are working with editors, and the editors they just like to have the music ahead of time, and they like to edit their picture to the music, which is
Mm.
weird for me. So now that's why this new thing that I'm doing is I'm putting out music. It it's hard to explain. Anyway, but for I would say in this one that I won the award for, this or I won, they won. I didn't win anything. Um,
Oh, you're a
so
winner.
I'm a winner. So here's what happened. I mean, here's the story of how this happened. So I got a call from these people, from the producer, on Friday, Saturday, whatever, on the weekend, about hey, there's this film, would you be interested in doing it? We'll send you everything. And I'm like, yeah, of course, absolutely. And so then, okay, great, we'll send it to you tomorrow. I think it was Friday. We'll send it to you, whatever, tomorrow. So then Sunday came and I never got it. I never got anything. I'm like, okay, it fell through, whatever. I was living in Tampa and I had to make a trip to Atlanta. So Monday, I got in the car and I started driving to Atlanta. I was literally like maybe a couple hours away from Atlanta at that point. And then I get an email with the whole thing there. And of course, I can't watch the film while I'm driving. And oh, by the way, we need it tomorrow. We need the music on Tuesday. so
Cool. Okay.
that was that yeah, it was crazy. So I did my business in Atlanta, and then that night before I stayed the night at Atlanta. So I watched the film that night, and I watched it as much as I could, and just had a notebook, and I just started drafting musical ideas in my. I didn't have a keyboard. I didn't bring anything. I literally
Oh
didn't
wow.
bring. So I didn't have anything to record, and so I started writing stuff down. I was trying to get it, and then I went to sleep. Woke up. All right. I woke up as early as I could. I gotta drive. I gotta make it home now. I gotta do it. Um, so everything I wrote down was garbage. It wasn't good. I couldn't use it. So I kid you not. So literally what I'm doing now is I'm driving down the highway, humming all these ideas in my phone of little melodies of like, okay, maybe this could do it. Maybe this could do it. And then I finally came up with something. I came up with an idea and I didn't eat it. I didn't eat breakfast at the point. So I had to, and I'm not going to make it because it's a 6 hour drive. It's a 6 hour drive from Atlanta to Tampa. So I stopped and I ate and I had this idea like, you know what? this could be a guitar line. We can have the guitar play this part. I can't play guitar, but I know a guitar player in Tampa. So what I did was I used the crappy GarageBand app on my iPhone. I did a BPM. I literally like played the beat on there. I played some chords with the using the keyboard and just doing that. And I remember everyone was looking at me weird in this Cracker Barrel in the South, you know, in this corner, and I'm just like doing this with my earphones on, and she's like, "Would you like more syrup?" Okay, I'm not gonna. And so I did that, and I called my guitar player friend. He wasn't available because I think it was like Thanksgiving or something. I can't remember. So he wasn't available. So then I called my other guitar friend. He was available. All right, great. So I literally sent him the GarageBand bounce of the MP3 to him, with the BPM and everything set. Then rush hour came. I didn't get home till 7 p.m.
Oh,
Lord, this is way too long. I'm sorry to take up all this
Oh no,
time.
no,
This is not about this.
this is our time. Like you take as much time as you want. This is fascinating. What happened next?
So I finally get home. Like literally, it was so great. So literally, the guitar player, he FaceTimed me his part, and I'm like, that's great, send it over. So he sends it over to me. I get home, I use Pro Tools. I open up the Pro Tools file, and I just start getting to work, and I start doing it. And man, I gotta tell you, I don't remember much of it at that point. At that point, I worked through the night from 7 p.m. to like, I don't know, like 8 a.m. or something like that. And then I crashed. I crashed so hard. And then I got up maybe 3 or 4 hours later, and I did a little bit more because I want to do a bit more, and because there's no time for back and forth at this point, and they're crunching time too. They're already working on something else, so it really is just making music that can work in certain cases. So so it was weird because I was going back and forth, and the producer was kind of responding to some of my emails, but nothing from the director. And then and so I was like, okay, I don't think I have any more in me, guys. Is this gonna work?
I'm
And
out.
he's like, this is great, man. You gave us a lot to work with. Thank you. And I'm like, okay, great. And I just crashed. But it's funny. Within that limitation, I am pretty. I mean, the music is very low key. It's not We Shall Overcome. Don't get me wrong, but it is some of the more elegant music I've made. Under that, you were saying about limits. Sometimes when you give yourself limits, maybe this is a bit unhealthy, but you give yourself limits, you're able to find I don't know, you're able to just define things from stuff you never thought you had. And so while it's not the best mixed, or I listen to it again, I'm like, oh, I should turn that one part down. It still worked, I think, in the context. And again, it gave me that connection that I needed to kind of almost get my foot in the door, but make someone, to when I moved here to Los Angeles, it sort of paved that way. So yeah, that's my story.
Oh,
Very
music.
cool.
Inspiration is great, but sometimes last minute panic is a trick as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Richard has another amazing project too. I mean, he's been doing a song a week. It's
Oh wow.
writing, producing, recording. Actually, I never asked you before. I was curious, how did that get started? Like, did you just kind of feel like I want to write a song this week, and then it kind of kept on going from there? Or how did you start?
I had I turned 35, and I was like, all right, this is kind of one of those birthdays where I'm like halfway to 70 now. This is like I'm starting to get there a bit. And I was like, I gotta get this stuff out there because I just have a million things on my computer and the voice memos and stuff. So I said, let's just do this. I'm gonna start doing it once a week. And yeah, and it just kind of kept going. It was one of those things where I didn't want to stop because I was tired. I thought like if there's a stopping point, I'll stop. And after like a month of it, I was like, maybe I could stop now. A month sounds good. And then I was like, nah, I could do a few more of these. And then I was like, maybe I'll stop at my wife's birthday. And I was like, nah, it's gotta keep going. And we're at
Nice.
week 43 now. And
So you've
I'm
written
gonna
43 songs.
43 songs with a music video. Each time I put them all up on
Wow.
it's just, it's a
on
lot.
YouTube?
It's on YouTube, it's on Bandcamp, it's on Spotify, it's on
Wow.
the world. And
I gotta look those up under your name, right?
yes, sir. Yeah.
I'll be doing that. Cool. That's awesome, man.
Thanks, man. It started, the birthday thing is kind of a cheeky reason, but the reality is, like, we do a lot of traveling with the State Department, and we do a lot of programs where we go out to kind of embassies that work with different communities that maybe don't have a lot of money or time or industry. And the whole point of this is that I think you can do a lot with elbow grease and a cheap microphone and, you know, a GarageBand app, as it were, or, you know, or maybe the embassy can Cracker Barrel. That's right. They're like, I believe that if you put the time into it, there are a lot of cheap or free opportunities that you can use to get your music career out there now, particularly with things like Sounddrop or even just putting it on YouTube for free at this point.
So since you're the optimist here, because I see that as like, well, it's oversaturated. There's now everyone is doing it. So how do you rise above that?
So I think you just have to be special, and you're right. It's totally oversaturated, and everybody can do it. But the opportunity is still there. I don't think you can be a Justin Bieber anymore, where Chris Brown's gonna find you. Wait, was it Chris Brown who found it? Usher? One of those guys.
I think it was Usher, but yeah, I don't know. You know more than I do.
But yeah, that's how his whole career got started. Is he was a good singer, and then he blew up. But the opportunities now to be on TikTok, to be on YouTube, they're out there, and it actually doesn't diminish the amount of performance opportunities, COVID notwithstanding. So you can have the clout, you can have the following now without having to spend 7 or 8 years in a bar working out your craft. You know what I mean? So
so you're almost saying that, like, it's not necessarily having an established person discover you, but you have more of an opportunity to build your own audience and gain success from that.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And there's no more musicians now than there were originally. And I say that with the caveat that there are millions of songs uploaded a week to Spotify and YouTube, and people can do it more readily. But the people that are taking it seriously as a musician and do more than a song or two, that number hasn't necessarily increased, I believe. There's probably some real statistic out there to lean on.
Great perspective,
But there's a group of boys from Madagascar that we worked with that are homeless essentially, and they would just go out on the street to sing, and the embassy kind of found them and did a video of them that went viral, and then they brought our group in to kind of come and work with them and produce them, and we did some recordings and things. And last we heard, they got a contract to go to Berlin to perform in one of the conference halls there, concert halls, and I think that is sort of the path that a lot of these people could take, is that you do something remarkable, put it online, you get it out there a little bit for free, and then there are opportunities that can open up that otherwise wouldn't have before. That's the idea. But that being said, I'm 43 songs in and still looking for big breaks and things like that. So, you know, I wish I had a real answer to all of that. But
well, it's funny too. I mean, that it's great. There's so much more opportunity to connect, and technology makes it so much easier to self-produce. And there's still, I guess the one caveat too would be to be mindful, to be true to who you are, your own voice, instead of trying to chase the trends, or don't go chasing waterfalls. But
you went there.
You had to do it.
But yeah, like, if you try to chase all the different trends, then you'll always be second or third to the table, and if that's not really who you are, then nobody can do what you do yourself. You're the most qualified person in the world to be you. And so if you just find a way to tap into your own voice, then you're guaranteed to have something unique to say, because you're a unique person. just a matter of trying to find an audience who will tap into that.
Right.
But there's certainly opportunity there. And here's a good question. Maybe your idea of this has changed throughout the years, but the idea of making it, what does the idea of making it mean? And maybe if you want to say if you had a change of viewpoint, what did it mean, and what do you think it means now, making it?
I think it used to be this idea of fame and fortune and MTV, and you know what I mean? That was 20 years ago, maybe. Um, Now I think making it for a musician is having a consistent, steady income that you could have a house to live in and live a life where you can sleep normal hours. And and I think the idea of making it starts to transform when you understand why you're doing it or what you want to do it for. So if you're doing it for the fame and fortune, if there is such a thing anymore, you may never make it. But if you're doing it because you want to express yourself, because you want to be able to sing better or compose something that's more, I don't know, expressive, then I think making it becomes a daily thing, and it's no longer hope I make it someday kind of thing. It's more like I'm just making it today because I want to and I can. I don't know. That's sort of a non-answer answer, but
That's
That's a
good.
great answer.
Yeah. Alfred, what about you?
Um, yeah, something similar. When I was in middle school, I thought I was just going to like be the next Herbie Hancock, and go to New York and play with all these big band jazz bands because they're making all so much money, because they're the greatest of the greatest. um, and man, I worked so hard, man, learning all my keys and things like that, thinking like, man, I'm gonna be recognized for that, not knowing that that day is, you know, that day is done, like that there was a heyday where, people, you know, even up until the 80s where, jazz musicians were gigging every night, but that's not the reality of it anymore. Um, and as I started to realize that and I couldn't come to terms with that, um, dealt with my identity and things like that we've previously discussed. Yeah, I don't know. I just want to be able to afford to live here. I love, I actually love the state of California. I love the energy here. I love, even despite, before everything happened, I was like the happiest I've ever been. I love the mountains because flatland Florida is just too much for me. And I love just like literally people who I'll just pass on the street are the most talented people, and I want to be, I guess my idea of success is being a part of something, being a part of a community in which people are brilliant and great and making something that's together that I don't know that I'd be proud to say I'm a part of, and just being able to afford to live here. That's kind of what my goal is to as why I'm still here and I haven't given up yet. I guess is to, besides safety reasons, but that's another thing. But that's sort of that's my goal. And I guess if I can be a part of something like, I'm a big Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul fan. I love those shows, and I listen to all their podcasts, and I know the editors and directors, and I know how they work as a team. And I'm like, man, if I could just be a part of something like that just for just a season, I'd be done. And that's what I want to do. I don't know if that's success, but that's how I would consider myself a success if I was a part of that.
Yeah, it's what you keep going. I mean, like what Richard said was really, really, really cool. Like you're saying, it's what you do every day. Making it, you make it every day.
Right.
If you have just this image in your mind, like if I can just play Carnegie Hall, I'll make it. And you hear all the stories of the great actors who had quote unquote, their big break,
Right.
and everyone treats it as if, hey, they just came out of nowhere. Now there's this huge blockbuster. But no, they've been working hard for a decade or more,
Hmm.
doing the circuit, doing local theater, just honing their craft. And I mean, trying to hold on to that idea of having a big break in a movie for that decade. That's a big ask to have that sustain you for that amount of time.
You can't.
There's
Yeah.
nothing else doing it. Like I
Yeah.
found it myself. Like I never really had one of those big if I get this thing, I'll have made it kind of ideas. But the more I've been doing music and the more I think about it, um, I think it really just boils down to, in a practical sense, aside from any lofty goals, professionally, reaching a point of having you make it in music is being able to say yes to the work you want to do and saying no to the work you don't want to do. And beyond that, as far as satisfaction, I mean, I think what all of us really want deep down, that's aside from all the trappings that come with security and all that, but deep down, we just would really want, in essence, to make music we like with people we like.
Yeah.
Sounds
I
nice.
think that one came from, I think Byron maybe said that one, but I mean, it's so true. It's when you get down to it, I mean, make music you like with people you like.
Yeah.
What's better than that?
Yeah. It yeah, no, that's definitely great. It's great to put it down to the simplest form, and that's great. Yeah.
You don't need a big house, you don't need a fancy car.
Yeah.
I mean, you need to live and pay the bills.
Right.
But that being said, it's the
And I
arts.
think it's I
Yeah.
think it's okay for that to evolve too.
Mhm.
Sorry to interrupt you. But as you go through life, like the things that you want change, obviously, and
Right.
you know, when you're 18, what you see as making it is changing, and what you see as success changes, and then you get that, and you think, oh, okay, now I'm 25. What can I do? Now I'm 35. Now I'm 40. Now I'm 70. What what is my next thing? And I think the idea of making it is, I don't know if that's a Western concept or if that is if something that, you know, we kind of grew up understanding differently, but I really think that's there's no there, and it's just you're alive in this moment in this day only. So what are you doing right now that fulfills you, that makes sense to you, and what drives you to keep doing more things? So out in LA, for example, like it's different than Florida, and um, it's a different environment altogether. It's got different opportunities, and presumably you're gonna find that, like you're gonna work with somebody and score a film and score a TV show, or work with a team like that, and that would be amazing. And then a year after that, you're like, all right, cool. What's next after that? You know
Right.
what I mean?
Yeah, it's true. Like you said, it could change over time, for sure. Um, I'm curious. I hope we can keep this related. I believe, Richard, you're the only one that's married out of the three of us, right? So, how do you balance your personal goals as far as growing musically with your with your personal goals of your relationship?
Um, Poorly. uh,
But she's still here, so you're doing something right, you know.
yeah, we're still okay. We've made it to a year and a couple months now, so
Oh,
we're
congratulations! So you're still guys pretty new.
still new. Absolutely. I think that in some ways it's helpful to have a person there to remind you that you are a person too. As
Uh-huh.
musicians, it's so easy to just sit in front of this for 12 hours and
Yeah.
look at the screen, and then you get up and you're like, okay, where was Thursday? Is gone. And so having somebody there to remind you, hey, we should eat dinner together, or
Mm,
hey, we should go on a date, or something like that. It's just sort of this reminder that I'm a human too, and it helps to center yourself.
mm-hmm.
So it's just the same as being a human on your own, but you have somebody there to remind you and kick you in the butt if you're not doing it. So it can be helpful. It didn't hurt either too that we met in a fashion where I was on a tour and she's an actor,
Mm-hmm.
so we can kind of vibe with that and say like, I just need to work on this tonight until 3 a.m. and then I'll catch it tomorrow morning at noon or something like that.
Right.
So there's an understanding there as well.
Yeah, it's nice to have someone who understands that kind of, as opposed to when do you get off? Well, it's like it's not that simple. I have to, you know. Yeah.
Right, exactly. Like we ate dinner and I gotta go back up and do some more work tonight.
Right.
Sorry, but I'll see you on Friday. But we'll see, man. It's a long process, and
Yeah.
it's not easy for sure. But you know, life isn't easy,
Right.
and
And
if I have any real answers, I'll text the group.
No, that's great. No, for sure. And like you said, it's not easy, but I forgot the saying, but what doesn't feel easy, that's what makes life all the more satisfying when you get through it, right? That's how we feel fulfilled and for overcoming those things. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
very true.
That balance is so important too. Like you mentioned there, of having someone to kind of make sure you don't forget the world. Uh, I feel like, especially kind of doing the classical track, in many ways I feel almost out of time. Like
Right.
I'm an analog artist in the digital age, and like come to the
Well,
pandemic and all this stuff was like I am a professional musician, but I feel kind of lost with sound engineering. My version of sound mixing is, well, I use my ears. If it sounds too loud, I play softer.
Like Wider, yeah.
wow, it's a good
But
point.
with classical, you get so much into the track of you need to practice hours at a time. You lock yourself in the room in, and the way you get better is you isolate yourself. That's kind of the idea that you can get stuck in your head. But
Right.
you look at all the greatest composers and what they do that helps them, a huge amount in their creative process was they go out and walk in nature. They go and live their life, and it's just I think so important to not get caught up in all of our own artistic endeavors and self improvement, and remember that life is still there to be lived.
Yeah, for sure.
Easier said than done right now
Yeah,
in
absolutely.
Definitely.
Like,
in isolation.
yeah.
I don't know what
Uh,
it's like there in LA right now in Melbourne. We're only allowed to leave the house for 1 hour a day.
Really?
Yeah,
Well,
we
how do
had a
they
big.
enforce that though?
They got the police out, and if they come knock on your door and you're not there at 2, and
They're
they come
actually
back at
knocking on their doors.
3:30, yeah,
Wow.
it is. It's the real deal out here right now. But
I mean, I don't know if we. Wow. I won't say anything because
it's
there are
another
people. Yeah, there are people of all beliefs watching this, so I won't say anything. But wow, that
for
is
sure.
that is incredible.
It's pretty intense for sure. But
Yeah.
but it limits the ability to say like, oh, let me go listen to this mix. I'll take a walk around the block.
Right.
I
Right.
can't do that right now. I just have
Well,
to
I
walk
mean, you
downstairs.
know, here obviously people aren't doing that. But I personally try. I have not left. Like I've stayed inside like for 6 months straight. Like I think I went for a hike for the first time last week.
Hmm.
Because but and it is a strain. It's funny. You don't know the strain that it does on your body.
Hmm.
Um, until it's because I am an introvert, so I'm able to stay in my room for weeks at a time and not talk with anyone and be fine. But this is a little extreme. This is even I found out have limits. But anyway, I guess what I wanted to say is that uh, me personally, I've been trying to stay inside because I can run my business in here. I understand that other people can't, and people have to do what they can. But I've been trying to stay inside, and it's like you said, and I'm saying I can relate to what you're saying, that it's hard to be inspired or to live your life or to even meet people who are as passionate about their craft as you guys are. That's kind of why I was excited to do this to finally talk with some people who have the same sentiments that I do. So yeah.
it's amazing too. It's great. I'm so happy you guys agreed to do this because we all have such different backgrounds and have such different ideas that we can bring to the conversation. So that's fantastic. That's everything I was hoping for.
Hmm.
But I feel like we should probably start getting to maybe some last thoughts. Just kind of start to wrap things up for tonight, and hopefully this will just be the first of many kind of shop talks we'll have. Um, so I know that a lot of our conversation might have kind of gone over some people's heads, and that's just fine. I kind of want this to be a space for us, and if we kind of talk in more detailed concepts than we oftentimes do in general public, maybe our enthusiasm and passion will be wearing off, be contagious instead. Then, so um, maybe just a few last thoughts then about how we can, or as you Richard, how we can keep on making it every day as we try to get through this and still stay connected, still stay working on our art. even though we might have to do it from within our own walls.
Keep it up. You know what I mean? There's no real answer to that. I wish there was like Tony Robbins of music or something like that that could say, "You can do it" or something. Um, but I think we have to be okay with ourselves when we struggle, and if there are things. I mean, some of the stuff you were talking about today was admittedly over my head as well, but I still think we are able to communicate on a level of I liked that and it worked for me. And I think at the end of the day, music does boil down to that in a sense where it's like we're communicating, even if we're talking about, different cadences versus I liked how that sounded. Um, I think we kind of have to be okay with ourselves for what we can and can't do. And when we're struggling, it's okay. But tomorrow we're going to get up again and keep after it. So thank you for having me here today to chat with you guys, because you guys are both, I've had a chance to kind of look at your stuff as well, Alfred. And yeah, you guys are both very talented people. So it's cool to sit here and chat with you about music.
Alfred, last thoughts?
All right. I had some time to think about this now, I suppose, now that I didn't have to go first. As far as making it every day, so here's what sort of worked for me when I was down in the depths like everyone else was, is that I started noticing that even though all my days were bad, certain days were not as bad as others. And I started gravitating towards that. Like, okay, I'm gonna make it like, so this day was 30%, but this day was like more 50%. So, so I kind of start chasing that 50%. And the next thing you know, now you're changing 60%. And you 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 try to you try to draw yourself to those better days. And next thing you know, I'm composing again. I haven't composed anything for months, but I think I have an idea. I want to record it. And then one thing leads to another, and then all of a sudden, one of the films you scored won an award. But but anyway, I guess as far as making it every day, recognize that you're going to have bad days and accept that. Sometimes, um, you know, we can't all be Richard and make it a song every week. It's okay to miss a week, but don't give up on everything. It's just that's what I had to do too. It's just recognize that, man, I only returned 3 emails and I did nothing else to this day, but that's okay. Go to sleep, wake up, try to make the next day better, and that's how, one step at a time, you'll make it. That's my. And again, great talking to both of you guys. Nice meeting you, Richard. Jeff, it's great to actually have a nice long conversation with you. I'm looking forward to seeing your stuff though, Richard, for sure. And again, Jeff, your arrangements are always just intriguing and involved and fascinating. And so everything you do, I love watching it. So thanks for that. Yeah.
Thanks so much. And that's great thoughts too. And yeah, I think I'm trying to remember where I heard this from. I'm probably going to butcher the exact thing of it, but one of those little nuggets you picked up somewhere along the way from some person who said it, and it's something kind of like, just keep on showing up. Like, I don't know the exact number. He said, I'll just make up a number and say, 90% of making go is just showing up. And a lot of the people, you might not be the most talented or the strongest, fastest, whatever it is, but if you just keep on showing up day after day, that's what keeps you there. All the people who burn bright and maybe burn out, but it takes that dedication just to keep on showing up, whether it means just to show up and try to create, even if it's just a little tiny thing. Maybe your well is almost dry and you can just string a couple notes together and that's all you do. Or maybe all you can do is look at what you've done before and say, I got nothing today, but at least you showed up.
Right.
And these are crazy times we're going through. I mean, it's like a once in a lifetime event, I hope. And it would be crazy for any of us to imagine that we could operate at 100%. It's just simple. Nobody's at 100% right now.
Yeah.
And we need to give ourselves permission to not be okay. but still to try to show up. I mean, we can't just crawl in a hole and close it in behind us. We got to still show up, whether that's just to say hi to a friend here and there, or like I myself, when I was really in the depth of it, if I can do just one productive thing a day, I'll call that enough. So just gotta keep on showing up, keep on making it every day. And with that, I think we'll end our first shop talk. Thank you so much, Richard, Alfred, for joining me. We'll hope to see you again for the next ones in the future. And yeah, have a good night and good day, both of
Well,
you.
it's night 7. Oh, day for him. Yeah, it's true. Sorry.